My journey towards biblical manhood started over 2 years ago. And whether you've been with me since the beginning or you just joined in today, this week's interview is me and the story behind the podcast. Coming up on Manly with Andy. Coming up is an interview I did with Paul Perot on our mother station, Faith Radio, the station that helps provide this podcast to you. So if you want more powerful interviews like this, be sure to check out myfaithradio.com.
Hey, Paul filling in again for Carmen here on The Reconnect this weekend. Here we are in June, and it is, among other things, Men's Health Month, Men's Mental Health Month, and maybe it should also be Men's Spiritual Health Month because, men's mental and spiritual well-being has taken a hit a lot throughout history, but especially in the most recent years here. The trope of the clueless dad and husband, a la The Simpsons and Home Improvement, and then all this talk about toxic masculinity, among other things in the culture, has really got men questioning not only their place in the world, but who they are, especially before God. Well, joining me now is Andy Uso. By day, Andy is the afternoon host on Faith Radio's sister music station in the Twin Cities, 98.5 KTIS, plus his voice is heard on many stations throughout the U.S. How you do that, Andy, I don't know. I do know. But he's also a dad and husband. And somewhere in the midst of all that, he's the host of a podcast on the Faith Podcast Network called Manly with Andy. Andy, thanks for joining us.
It's an honor. And can I just start off with saying I do appreciate, and I know we'll dig deeper into this, the clueless dad trope, but I loved Home Improvement. I still love Home Improvement.
Well, I do too.
We need more power.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The more power, the better. But that said, Manly with Andy, manliness has been taking a hit, and here you are putting that right there on the podcast name. Why the podcast? Why did you decide to do this a few years ago?
Well, it was put on my heart. I'm social. I love social media, but I love the most toxic of social media networks. I love Twitter / X.
Yeah.
That's my only social media thing I ever do is go on there every single day because it's so on top of whatever is like public events, whatever is the news of the day. It's there, and unlike all the other social media networks, you get everybody's voices. It's not just the friends or the people you follow. You find out it's everybody. It's a free-for-all, for better or for worse. And so I kept seeing things that, I don't know if you've talked about this before, but I don't know if the term was coined at that time, but things coming from these guys that is now called the manosphere.
Oh, yeah.
And it is the worst example of what you would think a man would be. And it's all about the pendulum swinging. So I don't know you think about the Me Too movement. When did that start? About 10 years ago?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
And that was a pendulum swinging to, there were men that were in power that did not act like the way men should act.
True.
And then so the pendulum swung to, now we're taking back the power. We're going to hold these men accountable, which I think is great because that's not biblical masculinity. But then it went to all men are evil and every man is bad and we need to get rid of all of them and the future is female. There were people that said that the future is female. I'm like, well, God, we're 50% of the population. Do we have any say in this? Maybe there's been some abuses and some misuse of power, but that's going to then create a whole different slew of problems. So I saw that the manosphere coming in as, again, a pendulum swinging way too far back to this side of, if you're part of the He-Man Woman Haters Club, then we're just going
I haven't heard that phrase in a long time. That's Little Rascals, man. Little Rascals.
That's even before my time, but I do remember that. I was old enough for the movie that came out in the 90s.
Oh, I used to watch the old shorts on the Channel 4 in the Twin Cities,
So then the pendulum swing again, and it was almost, and I feel like this is just how the public discourse is now. Oh yeah, you think I'm like that? Well, I'm going to be double more of that.
Yeah.
So that's what these guys are like. We're going to be more toxic than ever. If you think men are toxic, you ain't seen nothing yet. So I saw that, and then I saw, the pendulum again with the Me Too stuff, and just like Jesus over and over again would do in the Bible, he would say, well, you say this, and you say this, but I say this. Right? That third way. And so I just thought, instead of me just complaining about it and being afraid to really post anything on social media about it because I don't like confrontation. But I thought, well, what can I do? How can I be the change that I want to see? And I thought, what if I pursue biblical manhood? Because when men find God, it's going to change the world. Like that's what's going to change the world. We've seen that men in a negative way have changed the world with abusing their power. And then we've seen, and I'm more on this side, Paul, men that have completely relinquished their power and have said, I'm going to be subservient when God has not called us to that spirit of timidity, as it says in the Bible. And so, because I think a lot of guys, this is the other part too, where, it's not the guys, and I think this is almost more dangerous because this is where I'm at. So I'm going to say this is me, chief of sinners. This is where I'm at. Not I'm a man and I'm more manly than everybody else, but the guys that say, I'm a man, but I'm going to surrender all of my manhood and my power, and I'm just going to sit on the sideline. And that's worse. That's worse. It's absolutely worse because, it's the sin of omission. I see what the problem is, but I choose to do nothing about it. So this is me trying to take a step in here and just really honestly be brave for myself and then hopefully encourage other men to come alongside.
Okay. Tell us about your story about biblical manhood and masculinity.
When you start, God starts to put something in your heart even before you even realize it. So I still remember when I was a kid, and this might have been an 80s, 90s kid thing, but I had a little nameplate in my wall that had my name and then, the definition, the biblical definition. Do you know what Andrew means biblically?
Go for it. I already know.
Strong and manly. And I remember seeing that. And it was just like a little wooden thing like this big. And I would just stare at as an 8-year-old, I would look at that and laugh. Strong and manly. I was a pretty pudgy kid because I was not strong. I was more like not what you would think of strong or manly at that age or any age really. And so, but whatever reason, God had that. It's just so funny the things that you think. And for that, just ingrained and just burned into my brain for years and years and years and years and years. Fast forward, I go into Christian radio, and this podcast I've only been doing for a little over 2 years now. I've been doing Christian radio for 18 years. And so by that point, I'm doing Christian radio just a little behind the scenes, FM music radio, Christian music radio is geared towards more a female audience.
Yes.
So I'm a guy that kind of has to put a lot of my guy stuff aside to reach. And it's fine. And I've been able to do it for 18 years, so I guess I'm okay at it.
More than okay, dude, but anyway.
But I'm just saying, that's just a part of me that's always just been kind of on the side of, you just have to kind of put that on the shelf, Andy. That's just not what is here. But then God has opened this opportunity up for me to do this. And now I'm seeing all the the milestones of, God put me here to prepare to do this, even way before before podcasts existed. When I was 8 years old in the early 90s, God was setting me up to do this, and I'm just humbled that now here I am.
Okay, Andy, you talk to guys a lot, and you have one question you'd like to start off with, and I'm turning it on you.
Oh boy,
what's the biggest challenge men face today, and how do we overcome it?
And I'll start my response with the same response I get from every guy. They go, oh, that's a really tough question. That's a good question. It's tough. And every guy always qualifies it with, now I'm not every guy, so maybe it's probably different for every guy, but I'll tell you the theme I've seen, Paul, with a lot of my responses or the guys' responses that I've interviewed, and also me just personally as I go through this journey, is we have just become so isolated. And so the biggest challenge that men face today is thinking that we, A, can do this life on our own, and B, have to do this life on our own. Both are dangerous things because I feel like we, all of us fit into one or camp or the other. And I've just seen this through my life. When my dad, who was a workaholic and worked so hard for our family and provided so well and was such a great example of being what it looks like to do everything for the glory of God. He was an insurance guy. So it wasn't anything like this. His thing was always when I said, Dad, I want to go into radio. He goes, how much does that pay? Can you actually make that a career, son? I'm like, well, people have been doing it. he'd ask, well, how much can you make? I said, well, at the time, how much does Rush Limbaugh make? Tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
How much am I making right now in college? 0. I said, there's a range somewhere in between there. That's what I'm going to make, hopefully. Thankfully, it's a little more than 0. But so he was always a very good realist about, giving me goals and things. But he was forced, because he was diagnosed with early onset dementia. He was forced to retire early.
Sad.
And take retirement early. Now, the silver lining behind all that is that was when we lived in Utah. We lived at elevation, so we lived up in the mountains, up about a mile.
Yeah.
And so the air is thinner, and they kind of figured out, the doctors, after he was diagnosed with this in his 60s, early 60s, late 50s, that it may have been oxygen related. So they moved to the opposite of the mountains. They moved down to the prairies of Kansas. And he wasn't able to operate at that high functioning executive level because he was a region manager.
Yeah.
So he was managing hundreds of people, and he just couldn't do it anymore. So he was able to still have his wits about him, just couldn't do it at that high level. But the blessing is, because he was an insurance guy, he had all the insurance stuff. So he had disability insurance that actually paid him more than what he was making. So it was a blessing. He was able to be home. He was able to retire early and be there and love on my mom, who for her whole life wanted to have animals and horses. So they had a hobby farm. They had horses. He took care of them, and it ended up becoming a ranch hand. But all that to say, I saw how my dad, once he didn't have a job and he didn't really have hobbies, and I've heard this common theme from other guys that have retired, he just, like a sick puppy, would bug my mom all day, would bug his wife. And, women, and I've heard this from other ladies and men too, the women just say, you have to stop bugging me. Go do something.
Yeah.
Go do something else. And that is a common theme of, guys, we need hobbies. We got to find things to do outside of work. Our hobby cannot be our job.
Right.
And we need to have somebody other than our spouse in our life that we are friends with. So the ending of that story is my mom passed away about a year ago.
Yeah.
And what I've seen from my dad in this last year is, thankfully, there have been more people that have come out of the woodwork, and he has people that are now pouring into his life. And on the other side, he's now pouring into other people's lives in this season in incredible ways. But the thing that has come about this last year is people coming to me saying, your mom and your dad were so incredible with their hospitality. They did this, they poured into our lives. And so I just don't think he had friends. So that's what I'm just trying to say. Like, he was good about the ministry part. I just wish he would have been better about that, but he's being better about that now. So guys, get connected with other guys, find ways to minister to them, mentor them, connect with them, because you got to have more than just your job and your spouse. And your family.
It's interesting because, I was hearing a segment regarding Warren Buffett, who's retiring after, running this multi-billion-dollar organization. And one of the things people talked about is he got to that multi-billion dollars not because he was this great transactional business guy. He was very relational. He was just genuinely curious and getting to know people, developed a good friend network, not just to have a good friend network for business, but just have to learn, to just be a part of something. And, stuff came out of that naturally. That just flowed from it naturally. And so it's like, wow, more people need to understand that. I mean, not everything is just work. And that narrow channel or family narrow channel thing, there's a lot of cross-pollinating. It's what I'm kind of hearing with your dad right now, that he's finally realizing that.
And there's curiosity. That comes from curiosity. That's something that when we get, as men, it's easy to get a one-track mind. I even get this when I'm at work. I go, well, I got to do my work. But to have those moments, those God-ordained moments that happen every day. If you really believe that God is writing our stories and he has already gone before us and prepared a way for us, he's part of every moment of our life. So when things happen that are out of the ordinary for us, those are God moments. Those are God opportunities where we have two ways to go. We can go, okay, God, I don't have time for this. I have to do this. Or do we believe, and this is another thing I'm working on in my life right now, Paul, do I believe that God, the creator of time, will always provide, not just financially for me, not just with but that's not the only resource God provides.
Right.
God can also provide time for me. So when I have opportunities that come my way that are different and unique, that are maybe holy disruptions, do I look at it and go, okay, God, you've put this disruption in my life for a reason. So I'm going to believe that even though I feel like I don't have time for this relationship with another guy, right? Because I feel like that's one of the things that I say with guys, and I'm not good with guy relationships. I'm working on that. I go, I don't have time to hang out with them. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to call or text. But to say, God, you have put this opportunity in my life right now, and I'm going to trust that you're providing the resource now of time for your glory.
Well, again, we've been talking with Andy Uso. He's the host of Manly with Andy. If you're to do the 60-second elevator pitch, Andy, about the show, what do you tell people?
Okay, it's a 3-part. Every podcast has 3 parts. We interview a guy talking about their ministry or their book or their story. And then we examine a guy in the Bible, and we do a deep dive of something that he went through that we can relate to today. And then my favorite part, and it's goofy, but we do a Hall of Heroes, where it's a guy who has done something that nobody should either do or has done. So it could be ridiculous in one way or another, like ridiculous, like guy drinking or guy eating a rotisserie chicken every day for 30 days. And it ended up with the final rotisserie chicken, he ate it in front of a giant crowd. And there people came to this. Exactly. That's a yes. Or a guy recently on my podcast, he decided to get bitten by his poisonous snake that he had, his venomous snake at home for 20 years, a Wisconsin man. God bless Wisconsin for this. But now his blood is going to be used for antibodies.
I heard about that.
Yes. So it's both. It's just ridiculous things that only guys would do one way or another. And so we honor them and we put them in the Hall of Heroes.
Any dad jokes?
No, actually, no. Surprisingly, my show is absent of dad jokes.
Oh, you should work that in somehow.
You can be a special guest.
The world is running away from God as fast as possible, and Bruce Becker shares how you can follow God in a godless culture. Taking a look at a man in the Bible, we'll see where Samson's lack of character caused challenges, and while most people observe them from behind glass, what Dolph C. Volker is doing with cheetahs is raising him into the Hall of Heroes. Coming up next week on Manly with Andy.